Rebonjour et bienvenue
Hello
au rendez-vous de
again,
l'assurance de
and welcome
Casablanca.
to the
Nous sommes à la
Casablanca
dernière
Insurance meeting.
session
We have now
de
reached
cet
the last
après-midi du jeudi
session
1er
of
avril.
this
Avant
afternoon
de
on
passer
Thursday,
au
April
panel
1st.
numéro
So
4,
before
nous
proceeding to
voudrions
panel number
donner un petit
4,
coup de
we would
pouce
like
ou
to
présenter une start-up.
first to
Elle
start
s'appelle
by giving a nice
Docti.ma.
push to a
Elle
startup.
accompagne
So
la
its name
digitalisation
is
des parcours de soins au
Docti.ma, and it
Maroc et
supports
notamment la
health
gestion de
journeys
ces
in
fameux
Morocco and the
dossiers
management
médicaux
of these
que les
medical files
particuliers
that
ont de la difficulté à
individuals have a
suivre.
hard
Elle
time
s'insère dans le parcours
keeping
entre
up with. And
l'assureur
so
et le
it
particulier et
provides support
les
and
sociétés
creates
de
the
gestion
link
de documents
between
d'assurance maladie.
between
Et nous allons voir un
individuals,
petit peu
insurance companies, and we will, without further ado, take a look at a short video introducing this startup.
Docti.ma a pour objectif de digitaliser le parcours de soins au Maroc. Et cela passe en partie par la mise en place d'outils digitaux qui vont permettre de faciliter la gestion des acteurs de santé au Maroc. J'ai travaillé pendant 3 ans au sein du Startup Studio d'AXA Assurance à Londres sur des problématiques.
We've covered topics related to health and digital insurance, and it's this experience that shows us the key role of innovation in this sector. So today, the insurance sector, well, despite all of the inherent risks of the business, well, it needs to push things forward to adapt to the new needs of its insured. So this is a sector that is extremely dynamic, where the needs of patients and the insured are very numerous, and technological advances make it possible to better meet these new needs. Docti.ma makes it possible to insurers to develop or introduce new digital tools such as telemedicine, digitalized devices that make it possible to improve the medical services for insureds. And so health insurers can better protect themselves against the risk and reducing consultation costs, etc., and better serve their customers. So our ambition in the short term is to lay the first foundation for new health innovations, and later on, in the longer term, to truly digitalize the medical care from the beginning to the end. It is, in fact, in this vein that we have signed a first partnership agreement with Maroc Assistance International, with whom we are developing digital tools to better take into account the health of the insured. Anticipating needs in terms of patient health and to better understand their behavior, and as such better to ensure better risk prevention by increasing points of contact with patients by, for example, through telemedicine, through prevention, through apps for the management of chronic illnesses. Well, insurers can better manage the health of their insured and reduce costs. In 2041, insurance will be connected, but especially more humane and more attentive to insured needs. So we believe that insurance will be led by the insured, and it will make it possible for insurers to improve customers' experiences. And so in 2041, insurance will be an intrinsic partner of its insured, and will help them to better protect themselves against the risks that life may bring.
Changer pour
What needs
favoriser
to change
l'innovation
to
et
favor
l'inclusion en
innovation and
assurance.
inclusion in insurance?
Faudrait-il changer pour favoriser l'innovation et l'inclusion en assurance?
Que
What should we change to foster innovation inclusion in insurance? A vast subject, if need be repeated, and we are receiving prestigious.
What needs to be changed to foster innovation and inclusion? Mr. Dean Cameron, Director of Insurance Department in the National Commission of Insurance Commissioners. Welcome. Mr. Olaf Jones, Deputy General Manager, Insurance Europe. Mr. Fausto Parente, Executive Director in the European Insurance and Occupational Pensions Authority. Welcome. My first question will be for Mr. Cameron, and I'll give him the floor to speak for about 7 to 8 minutes, and then I give the questions to the other guests. Mr. Cameron, first question. What is the role of regulators and insurers in fostering inclusive insurance today?
Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to share some thoughts with you and to be invited virtually. I wish we could be together in person and look forward to that day. As you mentioned, I am the director of the Idaho Department of Insurance, and I am president-elect of the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. So I'm here to speak on behalf of the NAIC and its 56 jurisdictions that make up the NAIC. Let me just say from the outset, all 56 jurisdictions of the NAIC desire to protect consumers first and foremost. We desire to protect consumers by having products available to meet their needs. We desire to protect consumers by assuring appropriate safeguards are in place for appropriate underwriting, appropriate clear and understandable language, and certainly appropriate financial solvency. All 56 jurisdictions believe in the products and services provided by insurance, and we understand the importance of these products in providing financial and economic security in today's risks. The NAIC is actively working on a variety of initiatives with an aim towards fostering greater inclusivity in the insurance industry and across organizations. This includes supporting the creation and the increased use of innovative products, which will further expand access to insurance. One important element in inclusivity is ensuring consumers are informed on a wide variety of insurance options to them in order to meet their specific needs. Recently, the NAIC Special Committee on Race and Insurance under our executive committee was created and is incorporating inclusivity as a core principle in our current and future workings. Of course, we're looking very carefully to see how big data and information gathered affects consumers and affects the industry as a whole. Thank you.
What are the tools in innovation that are used to promote inclusivity? What do you do in this field?
First of all, we're still, like many, we're still developing some of those tools, but we are certainly working with the industry. We participate in a variety of collaborations between individual regulators and the industry itself. We have toolboxes and toolkits that we use to assist. Of course, all of the industry as a whole is coming up with their own approaches and innovations, and so we meet regularly with individual companies and entities as they try and work through that. When it comes to inclusivity, we're focusing on on those data sectors to make sure that the data itself is not creating exclusivity or is not in a way preventing access.
Yes. Does it include selling insurance products on internet? For example, is it still an option, or is it something common?
No, it's probably not as common as it could be, but it is an option. And as we know, there are a number of companies that are selling products both on the internet, through their mobile phones, looking for options. I think what's important to us is that consumers are informed of the products they're buying. Listen, the biggest benefit to any insurance product is confidence that the consumer is going to receive the benefits that they need when they need them. And anything that we do that dismays that confidence or curtails that confidence makes it more difficult for us to provide coverage to individuals and entities where there are gaps. So certainly we're working very carefully to make sure that those companies that sell on the internet or elsewise are doing their job and that they're regulated in an appropriate manner. There's been sometimes some suggestion that somehow innovation means that you have less regulation. Well, I don't know that I agree with that. Certainly, we have in my state in particular, and a number of other states, we have eliminated a lot of regulation that was unnecessary and cleaned up a lot of others, and that's certainly appropriate. But it doesn't automatically mean with an innovative product that there should be
less regulated.
Less regulation.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Jones, talking about inclusivity, what is the greater problem, lack of demand from those not covered, or the cost that is too high? And my question is for Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones, are you with us?
Yes, thank you, and I also very much appreciate the chance to be here virtually, and hope in the future we can meet in person. But indeed, I think that the challenge of inclusivity does come from both sides. I think there is a challenge to make sure that the products can be offered at an appropriate price and the right products can be offered. And that will require innovation from insurers. It also requires innovation and developments from governments and from regulators and supervisors as well. But it also, we need financial education to make sure that the citizens who lack the cover realize the benefits and the need, and they also seek the cover. So we need, in a way, a push from insurers and from governments to get people covered, but also a pull from the citizens and the businesses so that they seek cover. And I think if we can find the right center point there, we will make real progress for addressing the protection gaps and the saving gaps that exist at the moment.
But let's say an example. Let's take an example. You're living in Europe, and in many countries you have the minimum wage. Does someone who have the minimum wage can afford insurance product that are not mandatory? Insuring the house, insuring a life, for instance?
Well, this is a real challenge. I think that at the moment it's clearly difficult at a minimum wage, but I think that, again, it comes back to the right innovation and also the right education to get people to understand that in the long term, that buying and having insurance, whether it's saving for your pension, whether it's protection in case the main caregiver or income giver dies or has an accident, or whether it's to protect them against an external event such as a windstorm or earthquake, it really is a good investment for them. And as Director Cameron said, that they will get the benefit when they need it. I think in order to achieve that, we do need a range of things to happen. I mean, I think the first thing, we do need universal internet access, because the distribution costs need to come down, and that can be achieved through digitalization. That means the internet, it means more use of mobile phones, which is something many people have, most people have access to. So we have to make sure that those are affordable and accessible. And that obviously can involve government intervention and playing a role to make sure that the infrastructure is there to allow that.
You're talking about internet universal access. What about insurance universal access?
Well, to achieve that, we need to find a way to lower the costs. And that could, again, governments play a certain role, insurers play a role there. Again, what we see in Europe in some cases, that insurance premiums are taxed, and that creates a disincentive and adds an extra cost to the process. So we think the government should be very careful before taxing insurance products, because this is an investment in the economy, and actually we think it will pay itself back. Insurers have to find ways of lowering the cost of provision. We mentioned innovation in terms of digitalization, but also there are other ways we can use technology, for example, trying to make sure that the customer only gets the cover they really need. So, for example, when it comes to driving, there are innovations where insurers are now looking at covering per mile instead of per year, so that the customer gets only the insurance they need, and the price and the cover can be tailored to that, and that can lower the costs. But this does involve digitalization, involves innovation, but I think these things are needed to help make insurance more affordable and accessible to all.
Was it applied, this mile coverage?
In different markets, there are already these innovations happening, and in a number of markets, certainly in Europe, these products are offered. Indeed, also there are products being offered where we're looking at trying to reduce the cost of administration by paying out automatically when there's a certain weather event. So there are various innovations that are taking place, but I think these innovations need to take place on a wider scale in order for them to have the full potential impact that's possible.
And be accompanied with digitalization. I have a question for Mr. Parente. On the side of inclusivity, how can we make sure that consumers fully understand the coverage they are buying? This is the main question for consumers, so that they are not disappointed if they do not, or they make a claim about the insurance. How can we make sure that consumers fully understand what they are buying? Because in most insurance products, you know, you have these little warnings or contract stipulations. It's written so small. How can we make sure that they understand what they're buying? Mr. Parente.
Thank you. First of all, let me also thanks for the kind invitation. And unfortunately, last year we couldn't, because I was supposed to come last year in person. So it was much better, of course, if we could have done it. So as the other speaker, I still hope that one day we can meet in person in this important forum. Also because I remember when I was there for holidays, is an excellent place, Casablanca. Anyway, apart from that, and thanks, your question is quite key. You are perfectly right in my view. We need to make all the effort possible to clarify what the coverage, what the product is. In Europe, we have experienced different degree of information to be given to the consumers, but we are now, honestly speaking, in a phase of, I don't want to say completely, but deeply rethinking our regulation, because we understood finally in those periods, especially also because of the COVID crisis and the fact that many clients discovered they were not covered against this kind of pandemic, this kind of risk, that in the end, more information. In the past we said, we clearly stated in the regulation how many information, what kind of information an insurer or a distributor needs to provide to the client. But actually, the reality is that people have difficulty in understanding. So we need to rethink about which information are really needed, how to present it, which language to be used, and also the format should be fit for the digitalization, for the new world in which we are living. We also, my colleagues have talked about digitalization, internet, and so on. So we need to reshape the information to be given to the client on the basis of the digital first. We have an experience in this regard, a new product which is named the PEP, Pan-European Personal Pension Product, which is about to start next year, is based on a new regulation the European co-legislator issued. And in that case, we were able to rethink the information how to be given and have in mind that this product should be sold principally mainly on a digital tool, on an iPhone or whatever. So this is the example we need to take for the future. And so it's key, but it's also, we need to think that the behavioral research has shown how people interact with financial. I agree with Olaf, there is a need also to more financial literacy, financial education. But this is a long-term objective. We need to work on it, and fine, we are working on it. But in the short term, we need to please help us in redesign the way in which these information are given on the basis of the behavioral research that it now is quite, let's say, clear. People read something, they need infographic, they need the simple design, simple things. Mm-hmm. And on top of it, I also would like to hope that the insurer sell more simple product, because sometimes, honestly, we have seen that even educated, let's say, financial educated people like us, the supervisor, have difficulty in understanding some product which are too complex, simply too complex. We don't need so much complexity in many cases. So this is a bit of my. I will stop here. Go.
Excuse me. No. You stay with me. Do you mean that the products that are now on the market are a little bit complex for people, normal people, and that we should have a diversification in simple products, maybe less expensive and simple products? And second question is, does digitalization will help in understanding the nature and the extent of the coverage?
Digitalization can help if we rethink and design the information, the disclosure of the characteristics of the process for the digital tool. Mm-hmm. If we simply use the digital tool with the current set of regulatory requirements, it's not that the tool helps so much in the end. We need to give the information that people need. And on your question on complexity, of course, we cannot, there are many products which are quite good and simple and easy to understand, fine. But there are areas, we unfortunately have seen some product which is simply too complex, especially, for example, some life product with the risk, the unit-linked product, for example, with the risk passed to the policyholder, where it's not completely clear how many options the investor has, and sometimes it's simply too difficult.
Okay. So we have one last question for the three of you. We have 5 minutes left, and the question is, and I want the answer of each of you. How can we make sure that consumers remain protected when they share so much data? We have cybersecurity, and they have, in general, data security. I want the answer of Mr. Cameron, please, and then Mr. Jones and Mr. Parente. Mr. Cameron.
Well, first of all, I think appropriate regulation, and where we are at the NAIC working very diplomatically to work through the data, big data issues as data is collected. I did want to answer your question earlier. You know, we've sort of bypassed the use of agents here, and I know the marketing arm needs to be curtailed, perhaps, or costs need to be curtailed. But let's remember that the agents really provide an economic benefit to the community and consumer education and protection. And we are advocates for clear and concise language. We believe consumers should know what data is collected and how it's used.
Mr. Jones?
Yes, I think the insurers take data protection very seriously. They've been dealing with sensitive information for many, many years. The digital world adds another dimension to that, both positive but also some risks and concerns. But insurers take that responsibility very, very carefully and seriously. I think one of the things we do need to establish is that data is owned by the customer, and the customer should be free to share that data with different suppliers, including insurers, and it shouldn't be sort of ring-fenced by certain players in the market.
Mr. Parente?
Yeah, if you look at our website in the next weeks, we will issue soon digital ethical principle for the use of data in this digital world in insurance. Why? Because I agree, the people need to have confidence that their data are used properly. I agree with the fact that people may want to share it because they have better prices. You know, digitalization and data helps in profiling their risk. So cheaper product, excellent. But still, the use of data needs to respect some ethical rules. And here, at least in Europe, we still don't have so much clear rule on how to use the data, what is possible, what is not possible. So we are, in May, we will issue a discussion paper on those principles. So I hope that this will help launching a debate on how to better protect consumer in that regard.
Thank you, gentlemen. On behalf of the Federation of Moroccan Insurers, I give you my warm thanks, and I extend the invitation for the next year, if you wish.
Thank you.
And without COVID.
Okay. Goodbye and thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Merci, mesdames, messieurs. On reprend dans quelques instants.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. We are going to continue with our keynote speaker, next keynote speaker, and after that, we'll follow panel